Okay, so before I share the screen again, just a couple of points. Why this topic, how to win without going fast? And I can say this, I've been sailing regular boats, the kind of boats you get into for a long time. Some nights you do well, some you don't do so well, but you come back to the dock and the conversation is never, geez, I wish we could have gone a little faster. It's usually, what opportunity did we miss? What opportunity did we take? We should have gone there. We should have done this, and so forth. It was all about tactics and very little about going fast. And standing at Back Bay, looking at our group, which is honestly a pretty wide range of experience. There's some neophytes as well. It's easy to see that we could all use some help on tactics. There's so much to learn in sailboat racing. It's just amazing. I learn something every time. And I'll say this, not to be self-serving, but when I was in my 20s, I got a Lightning. We had a very active Lightning fleet around here. And I didn't know too much. And 2 years in a row, I won the Most Improved Award. And I'm only saying that because, do you have any idea how bad you have to be initially to be able to win it 2 years running? So there's lots of room for improvement. And I think that's the coolest thing about racing. Just a couple of sort of general comments, and then we'll get going. We race 6, 8, 10 races a day. There's so much we can learn in race 2 from race 1, and race 3 from race 2, which is something that you don't have in any form of racing. What I learned for this year, probably what little improvement I had from year to year, was I just had to concentrate a lot better. You're not in the boat, you don't feel the wind, you don't feel anything, you don't feel the tiller, nothing, there's no sensory input. And every time I screw up badly, which is often, I realize I'm not paying attention. So put that in the back of your mind. Now, share screen. Okay, so here we are. Can you all see that?
That's a fantastic image. How you got them to sit there like that, I don't know.
Yeah. So first of all, some wonderful video and photography by Bibi. Thank you, Bibi. And you can tell in the pictures that she doesn't only know how to take pictures, she knows a little bit about sailboat racing. So thanks so much. This this is not a fairy tale, but we wanted to have a happy ending. So let's start, with the ending. This is where we want to end up. We want our oops, what's going on here? We want the turtle to cross the finish line first.
Happy days are here again, the skies above are clear again. Let us sing a song of cheer again. Happy days.
Okay, so we're all together on what the objective is?
Yep.
Okay, onward. So I come down to Back Bay on a Tuesday, and the first thing I do, almost before I get out of my car, is I look on the water to see what kind of day it is. And this particular day, there was an exceedingly good-looking person standing on the dock. But you also see something going on in the background, which is what looks like some stronger wind or something.
Yep.
Okay, onward. So I come down to Back Bay on a Tuesday, and the first thing I do, almost before I get out of my car, is I look on the water to see what kind of day it is. And this particular day, there was an exceedingly good-looking person standing on the dock. But you also see something going on in the background, which is what looks like some stronger wind or something going on there. And very important to how you're going to do today to understand what the wind patterns are. Here's another picture on the big lake, and it's interesting because you can see here in the foreground. Can you all see my cursor moving around?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, good. You can see here in the foreground there's it's pretty calm, and then some patches of wind, maybe patches of stronger wind here, and all kinds of variety. We do not play on a uniform playing surface. We play this game on a surface that's different in direction and velocity, and fortunately it's level. But that's so important to our tactics. Now here's a picture of Back Bay that Steve sent me. Was this taken today, Steve?
Yeah,
He's, he's muted. So some days you
That was
can't
this
see the
morning.
puffs and the shifts as well as others. This would be one of those days. So, back to the fact that we don't have a level playing surface. There's one truth that's universal, and that is that shifts happen. Something is always going on the course. They may be changes in velocity, and it's pretty clear that off on the far side here, the wind is stronger, and there may be changes in direction. And those two things allow you to take great advantage of your position on the course. Also, the shifts that you have might be random, and I'm not sure that's the best word for it, but that, they'll change from time to time over the course of the afternoon. And they might be geographical, meaning that they happen because of a particular place on the course, and those might be more predictable. If there's a bunch of trees, you might discover that there's less wind there, and so forth. Now, so let's start off with the basics. The arrow in all these diagrams will show the direction the wind is coming from. So here are two boats, and just to understand the picture, it shows them 4 or 5 boat lengths from the mark, because that's how big the page is. They're really out on the course. They're not anywhere near the mark. And so these boats are relatively in the same position. This one's going to go off that way. This one's going to go off that way. And they'll get to the mark at about the same time. So it really doesn't matter which tack they're on. Now, what happens if the wind, if the wind shifts to the right? So, and we'll get into identifying these shifts later. The wind shifts to the right. This guy, he's almost straight into the wind. He's going to end up having to turn to the right a little ways, and this guy will discover, if he's paying attention, that he can come up a little higher. So now what's going on? This guy here is pointing much closer to the mark. At this point, this guy is, headed for Cleveland or someplace. So, clearly one of them is advantaged. It was a favorable shift for the red boat, and it was an unfavorable shift for the green one. So you're in the green boat. What should you do right now?
Yeah.
Well, I know what I would do. I'd get off of this tack. I'd flop over onto the other tack, and now I'm heading almost straight for the mark. So very basic, and without getting too wrapped around the axles. Every time the wind shifts in one direction or the other, it's going to favor one tack and unfavor, if you will, the other tack. So hold that thought. So the shift that's in the favorable direction, the one the red boat got, we call that a lift. And the sailing terminology can be daunting, but that's a term to remember. We call that a lift, and we call the unfavorable shift a header. Sometimes it's called a knock. And in the same fashion, when the red boat got to change his course to the right, we say he's on the lifted tack, and the green boat is on the headed tack. Does that make sense? In general terms, we always want to be on the lifted tack. Pretty easy to say sitting.
Yeah, I would think so.
Yeah, pretty easy to say sitting here in our comfortable chairs. Now, the question is, and sitting on the chairlift with Mark yesterday, he said, well, how do I always, how can you tell when you're getting a lift or a header? So a couple of ways. In the diagram to the left here, the green boat is following directly behind the red boat. If a few moments later, either one of them, the green boat discovers he's not pointing at the red boat's stern, he's pointing over here, or the red boat may discover this by looking back, then they have both rotated to the right. Would you agree? And so just by the change in position relative to your neighbors, you can sense that you're being headed. Or if we go over here to the right, you have two boats that are sailing alongside of each other. They don't have to be alongside, but in this example, and suddenly, here their bows are even, and suddenly the green boat finds that he's bow out on the red one. They both got headed, and in fact, it was favorable to the green boat because the wind shift was closer to his side of the course. So watch your neighbors. That's one way of telling if you're being headed. Another, and please stop me if there's any questions. Another would be to look at stationary objects. In this case, the red guy, he's heading, so close to the mark, or he may look at a building on shore and I'm headed near that, and then he'll yawn a couple times and he'll turn back and he'll say, look at that, I'm headed way to the right of this house that I was pointing right for before. And because we sail on a very small body of water, that's something you can get accustomed to doing. And finally, on heading, the most important thing is you're sailing merrily along, and all of a sudden your jib collapses, either big time or it starts to shudder a little bit. When that happens, what's going on? Well, that's telling you that in this case, because the boat's on a port tack, that the wind had shifted to the right. Guaranteed. Sometimes we'll show some of BB's pictures in a minute. You might anticipate the header because you can see it on the water. And in other cases, you're clueless, but suddenly a jib collapses on you. What might you want to do at that moment? Well, I can, and it's not a fair question because this picture is in a vacuum. But if I'm headed, I got to get my sails to fill. I might go over here, but that might not be the right direction. If it collapses big time, I may say this is a good time to tack, and we'll explore that in a minute. So to me, that's the number one way of seeing a header. Okay, so the green boat, he's coming along, and again, he's not really 4 boat lengths from the ley line here. He's out on the course, but he's going in this direction, and the wind's coming straight down our page. What's he thinking? Anybody? He's praying, in fact, for those that pray.
When to attack?
He is hoping that there will be a header. That would be the best thing that could happen for him. And why are you hoping for an unfavorable shift? Because if the wind shifts to the right, and he might have gone this way, say, wait a minute, my jib just collapsed on me. Let's get rid of this. Hold on a minute. No, I can't. Sorry, I'm a rookie. Okay, so instead of going with the shift, he's going to tack over onto the other tack, which is going to be about like this. And now he's headed almost right for the mark. So, you can't do anything about wishing, but what you want to do as you're approaching a ley line is hope you get a header because it'll get you there a lot faster. I don't think I said that very well, but important. Now let's question.
Well, I was just going to say, for me, I've always thought of it as which tack is taking you closer to the mark more directly. In one of your first ones where you did a header, the one boat was going sort of across the screen, wasn't making any distance towards the mark. And the one that was on the starboard tack got to head up and was almost headed straight at the mark. And when you think of that, you want to be on that tack that's taking you towards the mark, not one that's just getting you distance, but not really getting you towards your next objective, which is the mark.
For sure. And as you're getting closer to the ley line, if you're perpendicular to the ley line, the best thing that could happen to you is a header. Now, kind of an interesting thing.
In this particular case, you've also got yourself on starboard tack, which pushes the yellow boat behind you.
Well, actually, you're now on port tack. But this guy's on port tack.
Not if he switches.
Not if the wind shift stays the way it was when you said you're hoping for a header and he tacks.
Well,
He's
okay,
not-
so they were like this, and they're both on port tack. Oh,
Right.
you're right. I'm sorry, because my diagram, the sail didn't tack over. Yeah, John, you're absolutely right. Which may or may not be a consideration, you know, the way it's drawn here, it might be a factor. But let's just say a kind of a separate thought entirely, but let's just say that this guy got all the way up to here. He's almost on the ley line. And that term ley line is the line that gets you to the mark. He's right on the ley line. And now he gets a header.
Uh,
Oh, look at that. So he can tack. And now he's heading up here. So did he gain anything from that wind shift at that point?
absolutely.
Well, he gained, but he didn't need the gain, because now he's heading, because the wind shifted to the right, he's heading up here. He's a mile above the mark. So the wisdom, and I'm going fast here because, you know, we can't spend a lot of time on it, but there's been lots and lots written about don't get to the ley line too far out, because you won't be able to really benefit from a lift, from a favorable shift, because all it'll do is aim you above the mark. So something to consider. So, okay. So back to our original picture. So here we were. Now, first thing we got to do is get the riffraff out of the picture. So, oof. Sorry, Mark, it made me feel very powerful right there. And so get down there, and I look at the day and I say, I got to plan, you know, my strategy either for the day or maybe for the next race, whatever. And so the first thing you want to do is think about what's your route going to be. And we're talking about the first windward leg up to the first mark, which is a windward mark. And so the wind down here where it's the light blue is coming one way, and we know, oh, I got to go back. I left something out entirely. You come down at 1 o'clock and you see wind like this. The first thing you do is put your boat out there or watch other boats that are out there and sail up, sail up into these shifts and see which way the boat goes, and see if this shift, because generally when you have a puff like this, it's going to be stronger, and there'll also be a change in direction, especially in a little body of water like we sail on. So test it out, watch the other boats, test it out for yourself and say, today, I think these shifts are mostly to the right. And by the way, and you know, don't write this down because there's too many exceptions, but in a northwesterly wind where we sail, the puffs coming across the lake are generally right-handed shifts. So let's say you've concluded that, and so you know before the race starts that these are more like this. And you're here. You've started the race, you know, and you're here somewhere. Where are you going to go first?
Out.
To the mark.
Out and then tack.
Out, yeah, out until you
Yes.
get headed.
Those are both great thoughts, so let's pursue them. But before I continue, for those of you that attended the live session, I'm recording this one section because during the live session, I had a complete brain cramp, and what I said made no sense at all. So let's take a fresh look. If this is the prevailing wind here, and because we have checked out the race course earlier in the day, we may know that the wind up here where these puffs are coming from is more shifted to the right. So what do we know from that? We know that in the area of light wind, where we don't have the puff, so around here, the port tack is the lifted tack. And then as it shifts to the right, we know that the starboard tack is lifted tack. So that should tell you a lot about your planning. Let's say you're out here somewhere, you've started the race already. You say, where should I go? Well, I want to be on what is the lifted tack at this point in the race. So I'm going to get on port tack and head up this way. At some point or other, probably before I get to this puff, because it's coming down towards me as well, I'm going to shift on to starboard, because that's going to be the lifted tack when I get it into the puff. So a good example of planning your route. Now, somebody commented a moment ago, I think it was Mark, well, if that's the case, maybe you should start up at the upper end. And that's a good idea. If your strategy is to go go north right away after the start, then I'd plan on starting near the top end, even if I don't get the best start. So I hope that makes sense. Please ignore everything you heard about this subject during the live presentation. Okay, so here's the first of BB's great videos. I'll tell you that the windward mark is up here out of the picture. It's somewhere up here where these red marks are. Can't tell you exactly where. And these boats are cruising along all in about the same direction. Now, if you look up here, there seems to be some darker water here, little there, little here. So you might think that there's a lift coming. Now, but if you didn't see that, and you're you're headed over here, and the mark is up here somewhere, you're going to tack for the ley line. How can you decide whether you should tack now or not? And that's a big question. My take would be that if I think I see something coming which is likely to be a right-handed shift, I am not going to tack. So let's start the video and see what happens. Okay, so they're going along, and watch the heading, especially of the two lead boats. Okay, the mark's coming into view here now. They're still heading a little below the mark. Watch. A little bit of a lift. Look at the heading of the, oh, I can't do that with the video, sorry. Go back where we were. Up, he's up. Getting lifted some more. More. Look at his heading now. This guy is a mile ahead of a mile above the mark. Does that make any sense? Has it happened to all of us?
Yes.
Yes, sometimes we get lucky, sometimes not. But this is a good example of, we're armchair quarterbacking right now. And in the picture, you can see it's not too pronounced, but there seems to be some kind of a shift, up near the ley line. So I'd wait for it, because if I tacked earlier, I'd waste that extra tack. We're getting a free ride here. We're getting right to the mark. Okay, now this one, I'm going to enlarge it a little bit. I zoomed it in with the film editor, and I didn't realize it was going to get so small. So this is pretty cool. These two boats, they're going along, and so just take note of their heading. They're heading just to the right of this big building over here. And we're on the first leg. The windward mark is up here to the top left corner of the picture. Everything's fine. Now watch the left-hand boat, the white boat. He's heading well to the right of the building now. Watch him some more. He's heading either further to the right. Now, I'm gonna replay this. Let's just go on a little further. Way to the right. Monster header, would you agree?
Yes.
Absolutely. Now let's go back. And watch the blue boat. They're both getting headed. Okay, right there. Did you see the blue boat sails?
Yep.
I'll go back one more time. His sails start to flop. Bingo.
Yep.
He,
Bluffing.
he's luffing. He ran into a header. What would you do right now if you're the blue boat?
I don't know,
Think
does he
that-
have room to
Tack
tack?
the,
Bad.
to the left.
Absolutely tack to the left, because you're not going to catch up to this guy by trying to outrun him. But in my view, and we'll play this out, the white boat took the header and failed to tack. And if the blue boat tacked right now, I can't say whether he'd get first to the mark, but he'd be on the lifted tack while the white boat continued to be on the headed tack. And so I used to race with a guy on a J24. There'd be 5 of us on a boat, so it's kind of complicated. Everybody had a job to do, and if the sails collapsed in the middle of the boat like that, the skipper would just yell auto, meaning auto tack, because your jib is tacked halfway already, and we would go. Rather than discuss it and bear off and then say, well, we should tack right now. And so sometimes your mindset should be that if that happens to me, I'm gone. I'm going to be on the other tack.
Al,
Yes, please.
Tim here. What I was saying before about, consider where the mark is and which direction you're going. We all know where the windward mark is. They're not going anywhere towards it. They're going out a little bit, but they're not really gaining distance towards the mark.
No, they're
If-
not. They may be heading towards the ley line. We don't
Right.
know that because we can't see.
Well, they
them.
may, but who knows if the wind shifts back. But if they were to attack, they'd be headed pretty much directly towards that mark. And so that every knot that they put out there is going towards getting to the mark, as opposed to going somewhere that's not getting them anywhere.
Yeah, absolutely, Tim. And because we're going to shift back and forth and talk about boat-to-boat tactics between these two boats, it's a real opportunity for the blue boat because the white one did not tack on the shift. Okay, I think this is gonna shift to another video here. Okay, okay, so this is interesting. You've got quite a crowd of boats here. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 boats, all pretty close to the windward mark. A pack up front, and then another 4-boat pack here. I can tell you that the yellow boat and this white one here, the further white one, are going to be first and second. You tell me who's going to be third at the mark. This is a quiz. This is the midterm.
Third at the mark?
Yeah, third. I've already told you who's 1 and 2.
Probably 14.
74 or 14, whatever that is. 74.
Looks like
I
14.
can't see any of the numbers.
Yeah,
okay.
14.
I've given you a chance to think about it.
I mean,
It's
it
this
would
boat here.
depend-
Now,
it
the
would
one that's
depend
to the
when
right, almost
70
got-
kicks over, because 12 would be stuck.
Well, we'll see what the reason is. I think you get a little lucky, but we also see some puffs coming down from the shore. So let's just play the video. All right, so let's watch the front. So the yellow boat is going to tack for the mark. He's going to make it. A boat that we fingered looks like it's got a little blue on it, to the right. He's gone fast. He's on a line above everybody. And there he goes. He's here now in third position. So we don't know whether he was lucky or smart, but where you place your boat on the course, especially as you watch wind shifts coming down, and in this case, probably an increase in velocity, makes a big difference. So I thought that was interesting. Now let's back up. Let's
Wow.
back up a little bit. Any comments on that? I'm gonna shift gears here a little bit.
Well, the boat that came in third was above the ley line and lost, sort of could bear off and get a faster point of sail while still getting clear of all the boats that were sort of getting into that muck around the mark.
Yes.
So
Yeah,
in a way,
yeah,
that was a very smart position to be in.
that's a really good point, especially when there's going to be a lot of traffic. You know, and there's going to be you say, wait a minute, just based on where everybody is, there's going to be a prison riot at the mark. You know, what you want to do is get a little bit above that. So he got lucky for a number of reasons. Okay, now let's just see what's going on here. So hold on, I got to orient myself. Can't remember where we are. Hang on a minute.
I'm laughing because you keep saying there's a lot of fun and then you talk about needs and then you say.
Yeah.
Great video.
Yeah. Yeah, my tack put me dead last.
Well, there was a collision here. I'm failing to find it. Be patient for a minute. So somebody's got a radio or something on in the background.
It's down in the corner on the left there, 74 and
Oh, okay. There we go. I'm sorry. Oh, thanks, Tim. Okay. So this boat over here, way to the left, that's 111. Who is that? Oh,
You.
oh yeah, it's me. He
Doesn't
he
matter.
doesn't belong there. He's coming into a mob scene on Port Tack with nothing but trouble ahead. You get yourself way out to the left like that, and with a crowd up ahead, and you're in big trouble. So first, if you watch, a 12 come along, 12 has to duck. So that's a foul on 111's part right away. The starboard tack boat had to yield. If that wasn't bad enough, this white boat that's number 3 from the left comes along. Hey, let's just do it again. Boom. One more time. Wham. And one more time. That hurts. Broadside. Now, without getting too technical, he's really not allowed to do that. So 111 and that boat could be disqualified. He's disqualified for not trying to avoid a collision. But nevertheless, 111 had no business being on the port ley line and coming in from the left when there was that much of a mob. Does that make any sense?
Yes.
So guilty is charged. It gets worse, and I won't show you, but after that, I failed to round the mark. So
But when you're out there, you're the bad 111. What do you do? You see the mob scene, you know you're in trouble. What do? Drop anchor?
well, you have to bail out. Your responsibility is to keep clear. If you bail out, if you have to bail
Right,
out,
but
to
where do you
left-
go?
you go
continue
behind
left
the
across
boats
next-
coming.
Yeah, where were we?
When you see that and you don't think you can get ahead, you either tack to go onto starboard tack or you cut behind them.
Yeah, I mean, you may bail way off the course, but your responsibility is to keep clear. What the message here is to try to see those coming ahead of time and not get
yeah.
yourself in that position. But nevertheless, whoever asked that question, it's a good one. And I guess I did 1 or 2 or 3 360s after this, but a point on that is, there's quite a crowd here. You're supposed to do your penalty turn right away, but you have to be clear first. So you don't want to do it in the middle of this whole mess and cause a problem. It does not have to be on the same leg. Maybe to keep clear, you round the mark and get off to the side and then do your turn. Okay, Excellent questions. Any other questions? Okay. So, this was the J80 Worlds in Newport 2 or 3 years ago. And I mean, it's kind of interesting. This is a windward mark. And 485 here, he's on Port Tack. He's on the Port Ley line. He's where 111 was, except this was a monstrously windy day. I don't know how this ended. There's a couple of boats on the Port Ley line, and who knows what kind of carnage. I didn't take this picture. I grabbed it somewhere. There's trouble. 1002, he has no rights whatsoever over 36, but 36 left him a little space, and if he squirts in there, he's fine. If not, it's a major foul. So I didn't show this to discuss the rule technicalities, but that's what happens when you get greedy and try to come in from the left. Here's another one. I don't know what this is all about. Just a good place to meet up with some of your closest friends. That's
Wow.
quite a picture.
Uh,
Okay. So back to wind shifts. This is a very interesting sequence. So we're on the final leg here, coming to the finish. Here's the turning mark, and the finish line is not too far to the left of the picture. And our third partner on the chairlift yesterday was Ted Mineta, and we were talking about this, and we say, yeah, we get to the Mark IV here, as we call it, and you're 20 boat lengths from the finish line. You say, oh, I'm there. I just got to go over there and finish. And I don't know about you guys, but I have lost positions in that little short section so many times. I'd love to have them all back. And every time you lose a position, somebody else gained one. So watch what happens here. So, oh, and I gotta stop. So you hear that sound? That is I'm having a senior moment. Our lovely scorekeeper, it's her voice, because I slowed this down to about 1/5 of its speed. So that's what she sounds like talking at that speed. But let's go back. So they come along here, and 383 is getting close to the finish line. 12 here has a pretty good lead on the yellow boat, so he's home free. Now watch what happens. The yellow boat, his jib breaks. Do you see that? We'll go back again. His jib gets a little soft there, and it breaks right there. The blue boat. He's staying on starboard tack. Look at the yellow boat. He saw that, either looking at the blue boat or in his own, I can't tell. And he split to the right. And he's still a mile back. He's 3 or 4 boat lengths back, which is a lot for this short distance. So watch what goes on. The blue boat, he's still luffing, still not tacking, still luffing. Still ahead, actually, the blue boat. Okay. Now the blue boat tacks for the finish line, so 383 is across the line. Right there, oops, the yellow boat finishes. The blue boat's a length or two behind. So Joel, see what happened there?
Yes.
So Mark was telling me someone else was sailing his boat that day. So we're good. He won't identify the perpetrator. But here, I hate to pick on whoever was driving Mark's boat, but was a good opportunity, and also from experience, because this is such a shifty little leg here, to immediately start looking for that to happen. And the minute it happens, you say, well, this is a dream come true, because if he attacked right here, he'd be a mile above the yellow boat and in an even better position. So thanks, BB. That was a very cool video.
Yeah.
Okay. Thoughts on that?
The,
Okay.
the one thing I saw, Al, was earlier in the video, right, there was a wind shift that 383 got, 12 got it, and as soon as 70 got it, they tacked. And that's what you were talking about before. If you get headed, tack right away.
Yeah,
That's what made the difference.
yeah.
So
Now you didn't tack right away because
No,
you were
I
so
didn't.
close to the finish line, and you didn't need to, relative to the boat behind you.
Right. Although I will say that had any of them tacked, I would have tacked to cover right away.
Yes, and we're going to cover that in a few minutes. But that's right, tack to cover that. All Tim has to do here is stay straight in front of 12. And as long as 12 proceeds, he goes. If 12 tacks, Tim goes immediately, even if it takes him away from the finish line momentarily. But a very good point. Okay. Other thoughts? I'm looking at the time. I think we're doing well. I've got about 10 of 8. So we should do just fine here. This with the material I have. Okay. So what I like to do in the morning, because I just eat this stuff up, is I look online. I use an app called sailflow.com. There's lots of them out there, but you can, there's a chart, a map of the world, if you will. You find this area and you can click on a certain part of it and get the wind for that area. There's no wind for Back Bay. It doesn't really matter. I use the wind for the middle of the big lake because it shows the pattern for the day. So here in the red circle, this row here is the time of day. So 1, 2, 3 p.m. That's going to be our racing time. And the arrows show the wind direction. So just a little bit north of west. So that's kind of our prevailing wind, maybe not as northwest as it usually is, but coming left to right. If you look down at the bottom, the temperature is going to be a nice 26 degrees. That'll be refreshing. And but these two numbers are the most important. This is the nominal wind. So 7 knots, 6 knots, and these here are the gusts. So nominal wind of 7, gusts to 12, and I'll bet you that that puff that we saw in the very first slide of the gust coming across the lake, that'll be one of these. So for whatever, not necessary to do, but I like to have an idea of what's going on. Now the blue circle, this is 8 or 9 p.m. or tonight, actually, it's today's forecast. But it's interesting. What if this was tomorrow at Tuesday at noon? It's nominal wind 2 miles an hour, gusts of 3. What's that telling you? What kind of day is it going to be? It's going to be somewhere between a crapshoot and one where you got to be very sensitive to what's going on. We can talk about that. We can talk about that in a minute. If you go over here, I should have actually picked this out. This is a little better. The nominal wind is still 3, but you're getting puffs into the 8, 9, 10, and they're coming. I'll show you a chart of our course in the next slide, but it's coming from almost from the south, which is a very tough direction for our course. So anyway, I like to look at Sailflow or other apps like that. Okay. So here is our race course. Here's Back Bay. The top of the page is north. And so the axis of the course goes from southwest to northeast. So if we're lucky enough to have a southwest wind, it's going to come right up the course, which is kind of good. We don't see that all that often. Otherwise, we need to consider the shape of the course. So if it's a northwest wind, it's gonna the wind tends to follow the geography a little bit. So and because it's a narrow body of water, to some degree or other, the wind that you feel may be different than the prevailing wind. It may follow the shorelines a little bit. When you get a blast, a puff, it's a little stronger. It may not do that. It may come right over the rooftops and come down here, which is I think somebody who knows more about wind than me may correct me. I think that's the reason the puffs are to the right here. There may be some astronomical reason. Now, so that's kind of what happens with the northwest wind. The little square is where we race. If the wind is from the southwest, it's going to come around here like this. You're going to see it come down the course. And we see this because when we come around this mark and those kind of winds, we're kind of on a reach. And it's also, because it often comes perpendicularly off the shore, is going to come in here like this. And I can remember a day, and it was a very light day. It was a crapshoot, and I was, I don't know, 5th or 6th or 7th around that, like what we call Mark II down here. And nobody was moving, and a whole bunch of boats went kind of up here. And I'm standing here, and I feel a little breeze on the back of my legs. I said, something's happening. And it was nothing. I said, just for the fun of it, I'm going to go down here along the shore. And the breeze finally got there. And I don't remember if I passed everybody, but it was a good moment. So, you know, knowing that it was a southerly kind of a day and that it was light, you know, look for those shifts. Also, isn't there a whole bunch of trees right here?
Mhm.
Yeah.
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 And so
Yep.
we've all had this experience where we come around this mark in a southerly wind and we're doing okay. We're on a close reach and we're doing fine. And we get about halfway down to the next mark and it goes nuts on us. We lose the wind. People are going in all directions. How many of you can identify with that?
Oh, yeah.
Completely.
All of us.
It's a very difficult spot. And I remember one day when, you know, I came around fine. And when I got down here, I couldn't get anywhere near the mark. I was out here. So the next race, I said, the heck with that. I'm going to get up a little higher. I'm going to put a little in the bank. I didn't draw that very well, but I'm going to go high after the mark to put a little in the bank. So I don't have any magic formula other than this is a really good chance to watch everybody else, watch what happens, watch where the winners came from, and maybe apply it in the next race. The day I'm thinking of, it took. I mean, it was bad for 3 or 4 races before I had even a clue what was going on. Sometimes the wind is northeast, which is an excellent wind to race in. If we had nothing but northeast wind, it would be a fantastic course. I don't have any magical answers, but I remember one day when it was northeast. If anybody remembers the day that guy was it Wimette, this hot shot,
Mhm.
and the wind was east, and we were all starting up here and going up that way, and it was pretty clear that that's where you wanted to start. But when you got up towards the mark, the wind was different. So I would just say, you know, in an east wind, which we don't use very often, get out there before the race and look at the different corners of the course and see if you see any differences in the wind direction. One comment that applies to all of these wind directions is, I'll just draw it in here. If the wind is coming this way, it tends to bend around the shore. And so that can either be to your advantage or disadvantage, but oops, sorry. But be aware of the fact that coming off the water towards the shore, it's going to try to follow the shoreline. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
All right, moving
Now-
on. Okay.
I just want to reiterate what you say about getting there a little early and getting your boat in the water and sailing it, because that's how you really start to see what's going on with the winds and how it's changing over time, so that you get more of a sense of sequencing than just getting there and here, this is what the wind is doing, but you don't know what it might do going forward. So it really helps to get there a little early and put your boat in the water and you know, see how it goes towards each mark.
It makes a big difference. And I don't rush to put my boat in. I sit on that bench and, Tim, I watch you. You know, I mean, you're out there testing it, you're luffing the boat up, you're changing tacks and other boats too, so you can do it, you should do it with your own boat, but you can watch other boats too.
Yep.
Especially because they're gonna be boats in the four corners of the course, you can watch them all. Okay, we're gonna shift gears here and get off of wind shifts and into positioning your boat on the course. Positioning your boat at starts, at marks, and versus other boats. This boat here, well, he's got the right of way, actually. He's on starboard tack. So I'm not sure he's well positioned,
The
but
friendships.
I just want to point out that he has the right of way. Okay. Here's a starting line. This is a great picture that I clipped from someplace. Who's getting the best and worst starts? Where is the best place to be on this starting line?
The upper boat.
Probably the upper boat. And if it's confusing to see all these boats, let's take everybody out of there. And now we'll look at the upper boat and we'll look at one boat that's down here. And if there's any doubt in your mind, ask yourself, what would happen if this guy tacked, which is about a right-hand turn, and in that same distance, this guy went out here? The boat by the red buoy, he's going to be a mile behind the upper boat. So the reality is that this end was much further upwind than this end here, and since you're going upwind, the boats that start closer to the upwind end are going to be closer to their objective. Now, and we'll pursue this with a couple of diagrams, but how many boats in this picture are getting good starts? And that's a very relative question, but I mean, at least acceptable starts.
4.
3 or 4 at the most. This guy, he's at the good end of the line and his wind is fairly clear. This guy is down the line, but there's nobody in front of him. This guy maybe. These boats are buried. This one is getting backwind off that guy's sails. These boats are all buried. They're not getting good wind. They're blanketed and everything else. And this guy, I'm not sure what's going to happen to him, but if he knew early enough that he wasn't going to fetch, he should bail out and sail behind the fleet. But so interesting, in a crowded start, there may be only 3 or 4 boats that get good starts. Well, what else jumps out at me looking at this picture is this fleet. This isn't a very good start for this fleet, because we've agreed that the windward end of the line, the top end, is more favored, and there's nothing but space there. There's room for some of these boats to have made their way up here. So I would say that as a fleet, I wouldn't give the fleet good grades for this start. Okay, comments, thoughts? Okay, so just a couple of diagrams to reinforce this. The way we like to set up a starting line is that the line is square to the wind. And I know Don did it this summer. He'd throw that portable mark out to the left or to the right to try to get it square. You can only do that so well. Plus the wind is gonna change. But this is the ideal start. It's square to the wind so that these boats are at 45 degrees to the wind, and the red boat and the blue boat are getting an equal start. And you might test it by luffing your way, going head to wind, luffing your way up to the line sometime before the start and seeing what it looks like. If you're square to the line, then the line is square. If you're pointing this way, meaning that, you know, the wind was up there, then this is the windward end of the line, and vice versa. So, you know, helpful to test out the line ahead of time. I've seen days where this end of the line here was clearly the favorite end, and people are jockeying around, and you know, it's kind of fun in that last 30-40 seconds. And I, you know, I like to watch certain boats, and I watch Tim and I watch Don Cundy and sorry, Don, but I do watch your pre-start maneuvering. And all of a sudden, they're making hay for this end of the line. And why? Because they saw even at the last minute that the wind had shifted and they want to be down here. So, you know, be observant. And the way you can tell that the wind has shifted without doing anything else is you look at the boats and you're all sailing more parallel to the mark in this direction. So that's going to be the upwind end of the line. So be very observant on the line. Just another, I saw this diagram just the other day and I clipped it, copied it. This is another picture of the same thing. And maybe it's more graphic. Here's the wind. If the line is skewed this way, which is meaning that this is the windward end of the line, green boat's going to be favored. Same wind if the line is skewed the other way. This red boat, he can barely cross it. This end is going to be favored. Very, very important. And I'll come back to this. I think it was Mark asked a question about positioning yourself on the line relative to the wind, and we'll come back to that. So here's a quick video. I think there's only 4 boats here. What do we see here? They all had decided well before the start that the top end of the line was favored. So this is a good start. At least a good start for 3 of the 4 boats. They picked the right end of the line. I think that's good. It's illustrative. The 4th boat, he still hasn't crossed the line. Okay, you're the 4th boat right here, and we've all had starts like this. What do you do at this point? One at a time.
Tack to the right.
Absolutely, bail out. You're not going to catch up to these guys.
Oh, okay.
And plus, you're in their exhaust. You're in their bad air. You might as well go to the right. And even if you don't know anything, just split. Hey, I might get lucky. I'm not going to get anywhere by following them. So whether he did or not, I think he does. Yeah, he splits. So good move. Okay. All right. So that's a nice little video. Now here's a good one.
Anytime
just
you
play
want to
this.
stop, love. Okay.
Okay, can you tell from this picture? I'll play it. Oh,
Right.
oops, I'm sorry. Can you tell from this picture which is the favorite end of the line?
The far end.
I think the far end. It's a little harder to tell in this picture, but it is. And I want to show you something. So we're about here, and I'll stop it. Well, let's go back a little further. Watch this boat here.
That's me.
Who's me?
Lynn.
Oh, that's you. How can you tell?
I get to read the number when it turned.
Okay, all right then. Well, I'm
I
sorry.
mean-
I'm going to pick on you a little bit.
Oh, pick on me. Go ahead. I need it.
You are in a very good spot here, and
Yeah.
and you're doing something that I finally learned not to do this last summer. What I would do right here is try and hold that spot, and
Ah.
probably make that decision a few seconds before this moment here. Let my sails out and try and claim this piece of water. And instead, what Len does is he reaches down the line, full speed.
What am I doing?
I'm making record time, but unfortunately, and we've all done this, you gave up that spot and you're starting at the unfavored end of the line.
Yes.
And I would say for myself, if I've learned anything this summer, and you got to practice it, I've learned how to more or less hold the boat in place for 10, 15 seconds before the start.
I gotta say, as the season went on, I started further back and came in near that farther mark. So
Yeah, for
I
sure.
did learn that lesson. somewhere in there.
But there's two things going on there. One is, you know, to make a perfectly timed approach, and we all dream about doing that, and sometimes we get it just right. And the other is to get to a good spot a few seconds before the start and hold the boat there by slowing the boat down, letting the sails flap, and then with a few seconds to go, trim away and you're off. So I'd leave that thought with you. It takes a little practice, but I think this is a good picture of that happening.
Al, can
Yes,
I
please.
interject a little bit? Because this is the type of day that you were talking about where the shifts are to the right and coming more across Back Bay, which makes what was close hauled when you thought you were getting close to the mark, all of a sudden you're going on a beam reach or a broad reach, and it's hard to slow your boat down. When that shift hits, that makes it so all these boats would be sort of coming downwind. And so sometimes you need to be aware of that and just not get to the line too soon, because if you see that coming, there are ways to head up and stall a little bit and let everybody else sort of pass by that outer mark and then cut in at the last minute. And, you know, even though you're not sort of moving into position, you're getting yourself out of the way so other people can move past your position.
Yeah, for sure. You got to look at each one. And I'd say, you know, Eric sailed my boat for several races this summer, and I think he won each race that he sailed. And I learned this from him because he was very patient at the starts, picking a spot and holding the boat there. So I knew right away there was nothing wrong with the boat, which is discouraging to learn that. Okay. So this picture here, I thought this was an interesting picture because you can see in the lower right of the picture that's the starting line. It's right there. So this picture was taken, what, 10 seconds after the start? You know, 15 maybe, probably not 15 unless they're drifting, very shortly after the start. And look how spread out the fleet is already. It's amazing. There's a lot to learn. Couple boats up, 383, of course, he's up and going. 400's got a good start. These boats back here are buried already. Some of them are going to get shot out the back, you know, in another few seconds. What is this, 22?
That's me.
What about 22? What are your options here? Because you're kind of blanketed by these two boats here.
Yeah, I can't go to the right. I have to go along besides 12 there, who's partly blocking my wind.
You actually might, I can't tell from the picture here, but I'm gonna guess that you can tack without fouling this guy. You'll have to figure it out, you know, in each circumstance. But if you can tack without fouling him, because the first part of your tack from where you are to head to wind, you've got the right of way, and you can bail out and cross behind everybody, that would probably be a good move. So look for opportunity. This guy here, he's screwed because there's no place to go. He's being backwinded here. He's, you know, he's trapped. He's just going to have to ride it out. So I thought it was a good picture because so much has happened in the first few seconds that's going to dictate the whole race. Okay, a quick summary. I apologize for the dreaded PowerPoint bullet list, but considerations in starting. One, we want to start at the upwind end. We certainly beat that one to death. If there's a big difference in the amount of wind at one end or the other, we want to think about that. We want to think, as I believe it was Mark who said, you want to think about where you want to go next. If I see a puff coming down from the top and it's going to get here in a few seconds, I don't care what the starting line looks like. I want to start up here, even if I'm late. You know, come in a boat length late. I want to get to the right. I don't want to be blocked by any other boats. I want to start in clear air. I have to think about traffic and, you know, having my air clear. That's always a consideration. Even if I'm in the middle of the line, if I get a clear start, I'm good. In our particular case, we have that shoreline to the left. So we always want to think about that. You know, sooner or later, you're going to run out of lake. So, you know, think about how long you can stay on starboard tack. Overall, you're minimizing risk. You know, if I want to get the absolute best start in the whole fleet, and I'm either gonna get it or I'm gonna get squirted out the back, figure out what's a good sort of risk, no risk strategy for you. And we always got to think about the competition. So, you know, we want to get rid of the competition early on. So this is acceptable. This will work.
Can we go back to that last slide, please?
Oh, no, we're enjoying this one too much. The Sinky here in this picture is a boat called Amarita. That was
Is this
built
where we
by-
scream, Anthony?
Say again?
Is this where we scream, Anthony?
Yeah.
Yeah, right. This boat, the boat that sank, clearly it sank, was built in 1903. It was not one of a kind, it was a New York 30. And they won $1 million lawsuit over this incident. So one way to take out the competition. All right.
Is everybody
Tim,
okay?
Tim, you wanted to go back to this picture?
Yeah, I kind of have a problem with that.
Ah,
I think you should take out everybody that wants to take me on out first and just let me sail ahead. I'll show you the way.
I mean, it's sportsmanlike not to go after individual boats. You know, maybe if it's the last race of a series and it's between you and him, you know, you try to squeeze him over the line or something, but it's good sportsmanship not to, you know, to get one-on-one on the race course.
Yeah, that was-
Okay. All right, shifting gears again, and we've got about 10 minutes, and I think we're just going to be good here. So here's 4 boats coming along. Which one is in the best position?
There's 5.
Oh yeah, 5. I'm looking at the 4 lead ones. 5 boats. You can't tell. You don't have enough information. If the
Oh.
mark's here,
Oh.
then the left-hand most
Yeah.
boat is in the best position. He's getting ready to round. If the mark's here, then this boat's in the best position. So without belaboring it here, just to make the point that as you approach a mark, there's better and worse ways to go. And you have to think about your approach to the mark. So here's an example. This is my favorite situation in boating. You can dream about this situation, you know, for years, and when you finally pull it off, you're going to have a big smile on your face. You're sailing downwind. You know, in our case, you're usually sailing towards Mark 3, I guess we call it, and you're the green boat. You're ahead of everybody. You know, this has never happened to you before. You're ahead. This is just great. I'm up there, you know, with the with the leaders. It's the main event. So what's going to happen to this guy? He's on the outside. He's going to what we call pinwheel. He's going to follow everybody around, and he's going to come around last. Does that make sense?
Yes.
And there's many variations on this theme. This one was probably more generous. You could be way off the screen to the right, coming around. Now what I would do, this is what I dream about. You see this coming. Maybe you're here, or maybe you're back here, but you see this coming, that there's a whole bunch of in front of me. First thing I'm thinking of is there's about a 50-50 chance that there's going to be a prison riot at the mark. And even if they round beautifully, what I want to do is, if I'm here, I want to drop back, let my sails out, or pull them in, or do something to make the boat slow down, drop back here, and I want to start crossing their sterns. Well, I'm going to move the mark here instead of the boats. So now we're closer to the mark, and they start to round, and I will bet you that most of the time, by the time they come to round, especially if there's a bunch of them, that right after they round, or even while they're rounding, there'll be a space for you here. And what if there's not? You go around again, because you would have been in the cheap seats anyway. So this is a great thing. It's in all the textbooks where slowing down might help you manage your approach to the mark. Does that make sense?
Yes.
You'll be smiling for 2 days if you do this and you pull it off. Okay, now here's a great situation. It's not a very good picture, but it's a good situation. This was from the J80 North Americans this summer. The it's a leeward mark, you can tell because one boat's still coming towards us with a spinnaker up, and the boats that have rounded are close hauled. And again, the mark is a yellow ball right here that you can hardly see. This boat here with the arrow, he's got some choices. He actually had to start planning his rounding a boat length or two earlier than this. And what are his choices here? If I was him, I would stuff it in there. I'd come around that mark and stuff it right in here. This first boat, he'll be gone. Anyway, and look what he did. He took the long route around, and he is all the way on the outside. So this is a case of not planning your approach, and the leeward mark is the biggest, but has the biggest potential for gaining places or losing places. And in this case, he could have picked up a number of places. Pretty informative. He's a good friend of mine, and he has seen this picture, and he found it informative. Okay. Couple more. Let's just watch this video quickly. I slowed it down. I shouldn't have. Here, we'll speed it up a little bit. 638 gets on the inside, rounds on the inside, takes the red boat. Okay, nice move. Except we are 1, 2, 3. The stern of the midpoint of 638 is about 4 boat lengths to the mark. Does 638 have any rights to go inside?
No.
No.
No, he is not overlapped at the zone. Now, and next session, Tim is going to talk about the rules and stuff, but the problem we have here is it's not like tennis where there's somebody on a chair, you know, telling you in or out, or you're in the zone or out of the zone. The only way to deal with this is for the red boat or brown, whatever this is, to tell this guy, and hopefully you're standing right next to each other, I'm at the zone and you don't have an overlap right now. If you don't negotiate it between yourselves, then it's a free-for-all. So very important to communicate from one boat to the next. Here
Unless
is
he doesn't agree.
I'm sorry?
Unless he doesn't agree. You
Uh,
can't stop the film.
Well,
You talk to
Tim,
Bibi.
Tim, mark that down to discuss if he doesn't agree, because the onus is on one of these boats or the other. They can't have a negotiating session right at that moment.
I wrote it down.
Yeah. Now here's the opposite situation where 20, he gains the overlap, let's say, he just gained it, and he says to 130, I've gained it in time, I have rights. Or 130 says to him, we're well inside the 4 boat length circle. You didn't gain it in time, but how you round the mark, you've got to plan this ahead of time. Just another random comment, because we should be looking around the course. If 20 and 130 looked ahead, they would see that 35 is wing and wing, and that both of their sails are way too tight. So sometimes the other boats will tell you what the wind is. And rushing a little bit here because I'm right at the end. Okay, if we go about 5 minutes over.
Yeah, that's fine.
Sure.
Okay.
I have till 10.
This is an excellent questions on that last one. This is a great video. So we're going from Mark 3 to Mark 4 with the finish line up to our left, and let's just go a little bit. Okay, forget this boat. The yellow boat and the one behind him. We'll go a little further. The yellow boat, the first one, which is Mr. Cundy, and by the way, he's very crafty. What he wants to do is not get overlapped on the inside by the boat behind him. And so he's in, and the guy's gaining on him, let's say, and he's in a controlling position. So what does he do? He heads up, look at that. So he's commanding his spot. He's taking his lane. He's saying to the other guy, you know, in with body language, this is my lane, don't go up there. And watch, he does it again. And one more time up there, don't even think about going in there. And he preserved his spot. He kept the guy from, or the other boat from overtaking him. And he makes a nice rounding.
Ooh.
I will say from experience, this rounding here, you're sailing normally from a reach to a beat, should be very easy to make a perfect rounding. You know, because you're on a reach, you can go anywhere you want. I can think of 3 or 4 times when I was ahead of 70, and I made a sloppy rounding and he made a good one, and I was history. So this is a mark where crank up your concentration and make the best possible rounding.
Al, when you say good rounding, what do you mean by that?
I think for this conversation, and why don't you touch on it next time?
Okay.
Just a good, careful rounding close to the mark. There are some different approach paths you can take, but
Mhm.
but to use your concentration, and I think you can spend enough time on that next time that we can defer that.
All right.
A very quick. Was this a video? Yeah, just a very quick one here. These 3 boats are approaching the mark number 2. And the point I want to make here is, let's get the mark, is I guarantee you that right now, these 3 boats know exactly what they're going to do after the rounding. That for every leg, you should figure out before you get to the mark where you want to be, what you want to do on the next leg. Go high, go low. In this case, it's borne out. I mean, there's a puff coming down here. So I'm guessing now, and watch, they round, they head up aggressively, boom, boom, boom. They knew what they wanted to do. So be thinking about your next leg all the time. Okay, two more pictures here. So here, back to this one where we picked on the guy who was sailing Mark's boat. So let's have a different situation. Let me peek ahead. Okay, so and we'll focus on the yellow boat here. Forget these. Let's take these 2 lead boats out of the picture. And so the yellow boat's coming along, and he's got 4 boats right behind him, two really close behind. What is he going to do right now? This came up a little earlier. I mean, we're talking about covering other boats because we know that positions change so much on this last leg. If they don't tack, he doesn't tack. The minute they tack, he tacks. Now it's going to be hard because they may not all tack, but right now he can cover by going straight. There's no reason for him to tack until they do. So you have to think about how to cover the boats behind you. And in the textbooks, it says stay between them and the finish line or next mark. More or less, maybe not precisely, but watch what they do. Now, let's go back, and now let's take out the trailing boats. So yellow, he's got nobody chasing him. He's got 3rd place locked up, correct? He's got very little downside here. And forget shifts and all that stuff. He's coming along. He's not going to catch these guys. What does he do immediately? Probably at the mark.
Check.
Split, absolutely. If those other boats weren't there, of course they were there, which is why he didn't split. But if they're like that, immediately split at the mark. And maybe it's just to hope you're going to get lucky. So you know, think about the other boats for sure. Any questions on that?
Mhm.
Okay, so I have a question for you. Why is this turtle happy?
Oh,
The tortoise happy. So
Because he's green.
yeah, he's green. So all right,
Yeah.
so that's what I've got for you all, and I'll entertain any kind of summary questions if you have.